In this particular lecture, I'm going to talk about intertemporal choices. So completely be attentive throughout the lecture. Okay, I'm going to continue this topic. So in this intertemporal choices, what we basically understand by intertemporal choices is that there are two different time periods in which we have different time period consumption as well as different time period endowment income. Alright, so let's say C1 denotes my consumption in first period, C2 denotes my consumption in second period, and we assume here two period analysis. To start with, we'll just take two period to simplify the things further, and say M1 denotes my income in first period and M1, M2 denotes my income in second period. Alright, so if it is the case that my consumption in first period exceeds my income, that means I am borrowing. If consumption is exceeding, that means I must be borrowing. And if suppose consumption in period 1 is less than M1, it means my consumption is less and my income is higher, that means I must be saving amount. So I am a lender in that case. Lender if my income exceeds the consumption, so I must be saving. Alright, now let's plot this in terms of the graphical picture. So suppose on the x-axis I have consumption in period 1, C2 is the consumption in period 2, that's plotted in on the y-axis. So budget line, if I have to first plot, what is my budget line in this case? Just understand it this sense. My consumption in period 2 will be defined as next period consumption is my income of the second period, right? Plus if I save in the first period, so I am getting M1 minus C1, which is the amount that I saved, and I, in addition to my amount of saving, I earn some rate of interest. Suppose R is that rate of interest that I earn interest on my savings. So R times M1 minus C1 becomes my equation of consumption in the period 2, and I can just rearrange it like this. It's equal to M2 plus I take M1 minus C1 common, it becomes 1 plus R times M1 minus C1. So this is the equation of budget line that I get. And if I rearrange this equation further, what do I get? This equation, if I rearrange, keep rearranging this equation, we'll get 1 plus R times C1, I take it to the left hand side, times C1 plus C2 equals to M2 plus M1 times 1 plus R. This is my equation that I get by rearranging it. Now if I put this equation in this format here, what do I get as a budget line? So it will be a constant budget line with slope. So if you check this equation here at the bottom that we have written here, derivation of C2 with respect to C1 will give me the slope of this equation, and if you compute, this slope will come out to be minus 1 plus R. So since it's minus, so it's a negative sloping curve. Minus 1 plus R is the slope of this equation, and the income here we are taking, it's constant, so it's not changing, and therefore we have a downward sloping curve. This becomes my budget constraint, and suppose this is my endowment, so that means at this point my endowment is lying. Alright, if I want to check this point, I can just substitute the value of my budget constraint, which is 1 plus R times C1 plus C2 equals to M2 plus M1 times 1 plus R. If C2 is 0, computing value of C1 will be equal to, just compute the value of C1 if C2 is 0. This becomes M1 times 1 plus R plus M2 upon 1 plus R. So this just becomes M1 plus M2 upon 1 plus r. So this is this point at which we have C2 equals to 0 and C1 equals to m1 plus m2 upon 1 plus r. Alright, next I move on to explain. So this point similarly you can compute. This will come out to be 1 plus r times m1 plus m2. This will be the value of C2 and C1 equals to 0. Now we'll make a comparative study here in which we'll say if the rate of interest on my saving rise, will I be benefited as a saver, and if I am borrowing initially, then will I be benefited as a borrower? So both cases we will discuss. Alright, so comparative statistic. Yes. So having plotted C1 on x-axis, C2 on y-axis, let's take a downward sloping budget line with slope. Here we have computed the slope of budget line minus 1 plus r. Alright, now if this is my point of endowment, my indifference curve is passing through the budget line and is touching at this point. Suppose this is my point of optimum consumption. So this is the point of C1, this is the point of C2. Alright, and endowment, so it reflects this is my point of income. I'm just consuming my income in that case. I am in my endowment. Not trading in the market means not borrowing, not supplying anything. So I'm just consuming my income at this point, endowment. Alright, and suppose my indifference curve is such that it's lying to the right of my endowment. What does it mean? My point of consumption C1 is greater than M1, which means that if C1 is greater than M1, that means I am borrowing. I must be consuming more than my income. So I am borrowing at this point. Borrowing what? Increasing the consumption in period 1, and C2 here what we see is endowment M2 is larger than C2. So I am lending in period 2 and I am borrowing in period 1. Now as a borrower, now for me if the rate of interest increases on my borrowing, so slope is minus 1 plus r. Now if r increases, the slope will increase. So an increased slope will lead to my budget line become more flatter or steeper. Think about it. Now if the slope rises, my budget line becomes more steeper. So I move from this point to a point like this, right? So this is my new budget line. This was my initial budget line. My budget line expands further. Now as a result of which, just think how will my optimum point change. So initially if I was a borrower and I choose to remain a borrower and the rate of interest has increased, think will I be better off or worse off? My point when I remain a borrower will be to the right of my endowment point. Here consumption is more than my income. So my IC will be somewhere here. So definitely I am worse off in terms of my utility given the rate of interest has increased. So as a borrower I am worse off if I choose to remain a borrower. So keep this concept in mind. Next we'll move to discuss if he's initially a borrower and the rate of interest say falls. Okay, will he be better off or worse off? Think about it. In the meantime, so initially if this is my point of endowment, alright, and as a see this is my point of endowment and suppose I am borrowing, alright, so I am at point this where my consumption is more than my income, alright. Now if the price, the rate of interest here fall, for a borrower will it be better off? Definitely it should be the case. Graphically how do we depict that? If rate of interest fall, the slope becomes more flatter, the budget line slope becomes more flatter, and I move to a budget constraint like this, it's more flatter curve. See this is BL1, this is BL2, this is more flatter curve, and at here on this given budget line, my indifference curve which is tangent to this new budget line will be a point like this. So this is point C. At this C point I am definitely, so this is point B, I am definitely better off. Here is IC2, my utility level is much higher at point C. So as a borrower, if rate of interest falls, that's how we can show that he is strictly better off. Alright. So next I'll discuss a case in which a borrower may choose to become a supplier and be better off or maybe worse off. So suppose this is my initial budget line and here is my endowment and this is my point of consumption and I am borrowing, and so my consumption point is lying toward the right of my endowment. Alright. Now, so this is point A. Now suppose the rate of interest increases. So as a result of which my budget line moves more steeper. There are two possibilities here. First case, I can be better off or I can be worse off when I switch from borrower to seller in case the rate of interest has increased and therefore my budget line has become more steeper. So here if I move to this point, it may be possible my new IC is lying toward like this, such that my new IC2 compared to IC1 I am worse off. Okay, one possibility. So in this case, when I switch from borrower to seller, as the rate of interest rise, I am worse off. Another case is another possibility in which it may be possible that my ICs are such that my new indifference curve is much more wider and it's lying above my previous IC, which means my utility at IC2 is strictly greater than utility at IC1. This is the case in which case I am rather better off. So as I switch off from borrower to being a supplier, as I move from borrower to being a supplier, here my IC is at a higher utility level, which means that I would be strictly better off if I switch from being a borrower to being a supplier. That's how comparative study is being made and we can understand various cases. And another case I will discuss is when initially he is a supplier and if the rate of interest change, how does the analysis change? So initially he is a seller, which means my endowment point will lie toward right of my consumption. So this is my consumption point and this is my endowment income. So for in the first period my income is more than my consumption, that means I must be saving in period 1, and as rate of interest rise, definitely I must be better off, because if rate of interest rise, my budget line moves in a steeper direction and a new point will intersect, will have tangency with my new budget line on a point like this where my IC is this bundle, so IC1, this is IC2, and I move from point A to point A, definitely I am better off if I am a seller and the rate of interest increase. Okay. Similarly, we can have another case in which the rate of interest rather falls. So if the rate of interest supposingly it falls, we will discuss whether he is better off or he is worse off. So if this is the point of endowment. Now if the rate of interest falls, okay, so which means my budget line becomes more flatter. So new budget line which passes through my endowment point, this becomes more flatter. So I have another indifference curve. It's one possibility that as I switch from borrower, so here I am a supplier but I switch from seller to a borrower. So when I move to become borrower, it would be a point toward the right of the endowment point. So I may be worse off, I may be better off. Again, I may be worse off if my IC, new IC is lying below the first IC, so that my utility level at IC2 is less than utility level at IC1. This is the case when I become Versov as a switch from seller to buyer or borrower, I can say, in the next period. Alright, now if it is the case that my IC here it's much more wider, okay, and my budget line has become flatter because of fall in the rate of interest. So now I switch to become a buyer. It's possible that my IC, new IC, is tangent at such a point which makes us better off in terms of the utility. So IC2 is lying above the utility level that I am getting at IC1, which means I am strictly better off as a switch from supplier to a borrower. Here I am switching from supplier to a borrower and I am strictly being better off at this given point. I hope all this concept is clear up till now. Alright, so lastly I'll just discuss a concept of inflation here. Okay, so in the budget constraint that we have here, I'll just rewrite the budget equation that we have written, which was C1 plus C2 upon 1 plus R equals to M1 plus M2 upon 1 plus R. Right, now if I just put a price, give a price to the consumption in the second period, which means there is some price P2 attached to the consumption in period 2. So my value of consumption therefore becomes P2 C2 and value of endowment it becomes P2 M2, right? So I will just replace the equation here and it becomes C2 P2 equals to, so let me rearrange the equation further, it becomes P2 M2, right, plus 1 plus R, which is cross multiplied with this and becomes M1 minus C1. So this is the equation I arrive at, right? Now my next step would be, if I just rearrange this equation, it becomes C2 equals to P2 M2 by P2, which gets cancelled here, plus 1 plus R times M1 minus C1 upon P2. So this equation is similar to what we have derived earlier. Here we have P2 is the price of the second period time period. Let's express budget constraint, this budget constraint in terms of the rate of inflation. Okay, so suppose the rate of inflation that we have is given as pi. Okay, if rate of inflation is given by pi, we can rearrange this equation further and rewrite it like this. Say if P2, my price in second period, if it is increase to the level of inflation, so I say that inflation is happening and therefore my price in the second period is given like this. So the equation, it becomes C2 equals to M2 plus 1 plus R upon 1 plus pi times M1 minus C1. This becomes my new rate. So let's take another variable here, rho. So I just define 1 plus rho as 1 plus R upon 1 plus pi. To better understand these equation, I am just replacing it. So I can rewrite this equation as C2 equals to M2 plus, I replace here 1 plus rho times M1 minus C1. Now rewriting this equation, what can I write it further? Okay, just rearranging this equation, it becomes rho equals to 1 plus R upon 1 plus pi minus 1. Alright, now take 1 plus pi to this side and becomes R minus pi upon 1 plus pi. This is the value of rho here, and if pi is very small value, then I can approximate rho value as R minus pi. What exactly it means is that the R was the nominal rate of interest, pi was the inflation. So the real rate of interest here replaces the nominal rate of interest. So we have here 1 plus rho instead of 1 plus R that we had earlier. So the equation of budget constraint now becomes C2 plus M2, C2 equals to M2 plus this was 1 plus rho times m1 minus c1, and this precisely becomes the difference between nominal and the inflation rate. So this completes the chapter on intertemporal choices. I hope you have understood the entire concept. So it completes variance semester 3 part. I will be starting with Nicholson chapters in my subsequent lectures on intermediate microeconomics. Thank you all.